welcome to On This Day in Tudor History with me, Claire Ridgway, author of On This Day in Tudor History. Now, where am I taking you back to today? Well, I'm taking you back to the reign of King Edward VI. For on this day in Tudor history, the 5th of February 1549, 15-year-old Elizabeth, the future Queen Elizabeth I, was summoned to appear before Sir Robert Tyrwhitt. Tyrwhitt and his wife were keeping Elizabeth under house arrest at Hatfield while investigations were underway concerning whether Elizabeth was involved with her governess, Katherine Ashley, and her cofferer, Thomas Parry, in a plot with Thomas Seymour. Thomas Seymour had been arrested and he would be charged with 33 counts of treason, including planning to marry Elizabeth without the consent of his nephew, King Edward VI, and the Royal Council. The previous day, the 4th of February 1549, Tyrwhitt had sent Ashley and Parry's confessions to the Princess, along with a letter from Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset and Lord Protector, and now he wanted Elizabeth's thoughts on what her staff had said. Katherine Ashley and Thomas Parry had been arrested on the 21st of January 1549 and taken to the Tower of London, and the following day Tyrwhitt had been sent to Hatfield by Somerset to investigate Elizabeth's part in the plot. Elizabeth would not implicate herself in any plot, but Thomas Parry confessed to meetings with Thomas Seymour, mention of a potential marriage between him and Elizabeth, and talking to Elizabeth of Seymour's offer of marriage. He also dropped Katherine Ashley in it, writing of how she told him about Catherine Parr's jealousy over the closeness of Elizabeth and her husband Thomas Seymour while Elizabeth was in her household, and how Catherine had found them in each other's arms. When Ashley was brought face to face with Parry and saw that he'd confessed and was sticking to it, she was appalled and called him false wretch. But she then went on to make her confession, recounting the stories of Seymour's inappropriate behaviour at Chelsea, Hanworth and Seymour Place, his morning visits to Elizabeth's chamber while she was in bed and not dressed, and him slashing the princess's gown to pieces. On this day in 1549, Tyrwhitt reported back to Somerset that Elizabeth was much abashed and half breathless when she read Katherine Ashley's words. Elizabeth must have been shocked when she read the words of her faithful servants, and she must have been terror-stricken too, wondering what would happen to them all. Fortunately for Elizabeth, and unfortunately for Tyrwhitt and the Privy Council, Ashley and Parry's confessions did not provide evidence that Elizabeth and Seymour had plotted to marry and take the throne, just that there'd been some inappropriate behaviour in 1548. As historian J.L. Mackintosh notes, Elizabeth's servants steadfastly depicted their mistress as always refusing to contribute to any talk of marriage with Seymour. And in her own confession written on the 7th of February, Elizabeth did not implicate herself, only accepting what Parry and Ashley had stated. She stated that Ashley had told her that Seymour had wanted to marry Elizabeth before he'd married Catherine Parr, and that following Catherine's death he had plans to woo Elizabeth. But Elizabeth stated that, though he himself would peradventure have me, yet I think the council will not consent to it, showing that she would never do anything without consulting the king and his council. Nothing that Parry, Ashley or Elizabeth herself confessed to could be taken as treason. As Tyrwhitt told Somerset, they all sing the same song, and although Seymour was executed on the 20th of March 1549, Elizabeth was safe, as were her servants, who were eventually released and reinstated to her household. When Elizabeth became queen, she appointed Parry as her controller of the household, and Ashley became her chief gentlewoman of the Privy Chamber. They served Elizabeth loyally for the rest of their lives. I'll give you a link to read the confessions of Thomas Parry, Katherine Ashley and Elizabeth for yourselves. And I'd also highly recommend the book The Temptation of Elizabeth Tudor by historian Elizabeth Norton. It's an excellent read. Also on this day in Tudor history, the 5th of February 1537, in the reign of King Henry VIII, diplomat Sir Henry Brooke was born, and you can find out more about him in last year's video, and I'll give you a link to that too. Thank you for joining me. You can subscribe by clicking round about there. You can hit the bell to be notified as videos go live, and you can also give me a like and leave a comment. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.